Question, why would a prospect take time to reach out to you for more information, schedule an appointment, go through a proposal process, go through the entire sales process, and then not buy? So you got to think about this. This is why I am always very hurt if somebody doesn't buy from us, because the process we have them go through, it's nowhere near what you guys have a prospect go through. But you got to ask yourself, that's a lot of commitment, and for them not to buy, that's a tragedy, right? But it happens. And so there's 6 reasons why a qualified prospect does not buy, all right? And you got to think about this, because when you reverse engineer your sales process, or if you're getting a lot of objections, you might want to say to yourself, well, what are these things, what am I doing wrong? Okay, so one is insufficient perceived need and urgency to buy. So they're just not ready, just started to explore options, they're not sold, okay? So that could be one. Again, if you've gone through the whole process of auditing their environments and using the assessments the way we tell you to use the assessments, you got to understand that you've got to build the urgency to make a change. So that could be one, right? Number 2, something happened that usurped or interrupted the intention of buying. So they may have had a personal issue, an unexpected crisis. Now I know why ConnectWise did not sponsor our events last year, because they were trying to sell. And I think they still are, I'm not sure. But, they're saving all their money. So sometimes there's insider things going on that you don't know about, and they're not going to tell you it's confidential, but it could be that, all right? It could be they didn't like or trust you. Maybe they just thought you were a goofball. You said something. As delightful as I am, not everybody likes me. I know that's hard to believe, okay? I get it. But, there's a few rare people out there that, just despise me. They're not human, but anyways, it doesn't matter. There's a couple of them out there, just no matter what I do, right? So they might not have liked or trust you. They failed to sell them on the cost-benefit ratio. So cost too much, price is too high. You really got to make sure you explain your price in a logical way, in a way that makes them feel good about spending the money, not feel like they're being had or taken or just spending money they don't need to sell or need to spend. They don't like your recommendations. So they aren't completely sold on your products, your services, or your approach. And sometimes that's just the way it is. Like for example, this happens with us. So when we get a prospect on the phone, sometimes they'll flat out say this: I don't want to learn anything. I don't want to be watching videos on how to do marketing. I just want someone to do it all for me. And that is not going to be a good customer for us, on a number of reasons. Because they think it's just something they can abdicate, really. They just want to abdicate the responsibility. So they're not going to be a good customer for us, and that's okay. CrossFit gyms don't appeal to everybody, and that's okay. Part of what you have to understand, you'll get to a point of maturity, which I'm still a little bit immature about this myself, if I'm being completely honest. Because when I was younger in sales, I thought I could sell everybody. I could sell, ice to Eskimos, that proverbial, I sell ice to Eskimos. I can get a check out of a rock. I really believe that, and I could. But then you start to kind of realize that not everybody's a great prospect. And if you really got to sell somebody super hard, they're probably not the right fit. Do you know what I mean? So, but sometimes they're just not going to like the way you do things, and that's okay. You can't be for everybody, okay? And they might choose to stay with the devil they know, because you failed to sell them on that you're exponentially better. And that's, again, what I talked about earlier about one of the things that you need to do is create urgency to buy. You got to prove the need, and you got to wedge out the incumbent. You've got to really make sure your sales process has this in it so that it doesn't come back and bite you in the end, all right? Because, when you think about sales objections, there's not really that many. There's the price, there's the I want to think it over, I want to talk to somebody else. That's like all objections kind of fall in, and maybe they don't like your approach, but that's like it. People think there's like a million sales objections, and there's not. And so if you know what they're going to be, build it in your sales process so that you overcome them before the prospect even brings it up, right? So like an example, let's say, for example, you're in a networking group. There's a new guy that comes in the door, and he comes over to you, and he just slaps you in the face. And you're totally surprised by this. I mean, now whatever you do, hit him back, that's not the point, okay? So this guy's like crazy, okay? Now let's say a week later, you're back in that networking group, and this guy walks in the door and starts walking towards you like this. Are you just gonna stand there and go, no, you know it's coming. And it's the same way in sales. You know the price is too high is coming. You know that you're gonna get kicked in the nuts over something. I gotta think it over, I don't need all that, price is too, that's coming. So why aren't you prepared for it? Why are you just kind of, let's just keep doing what we're doing and let's hope the prospect won't think that. That's stupid, right? So you gotta make sure you're prepared. So how do you overcome these? You do a better job at the assessment, improving the need, okay? You put them in a good drip marketing campaign. Sometimes people just percolate. They just take longer. Some people, here's the reality is, here's another thing worth noting. Most people don't know how to make a decision. They're terrible at making decisions. The default is not to decide, which is in a way deciding, but they're terrified to make a decision, to make a change. And so you've got to help overcome that dysfunctional part of how they are and help them make a decision to move forward, right? Number 3, use a really good shock and awe box. Very, very good. Be able to logically explain why your services cost more. So if you are, how many of you, genuinely know you're the most expensive in your area? There's a couple, okay? All right, see, if I was gonna be, I want to be the most expensive. And I saw some of you raise your hand, and I know your pricing because I've talked to you, and you're actually, some of you are below par. Like, you're not even at average. So we just did a webinar with Paul Sissel, and I believe everybody in here, unless you're not a member, has access for the toolkit up. And he was talking about the average all-in seat price for managed services, and the median is somewhere around $193 all-in seat price. For managed, not projects, managed. So if you're below that, you're below average. So we're gonna talk about that at Producers Club. I'm gonna create some materials around that. But you gotta be able to explain why your services cost more. So we had Stuart Bryant, one of my client coaches. I don't think is Stuart here? I didn't see him. I think he was at one of the other events. And we were talking about, he came in at like 210 all-in seat price, but they needed compliance and security for whatever, so it was a little bit higher. And he lost the deal because the person who won it was charging 110 per seat. Now, I said, Stuart, if they were 180, I might say, okay, but that cheap, you should have been able to close that deal. Because here's how I would talk to the prospect. No matter who you're talking to usually an owner, CFO, right? Okay. Now, that owner sells something. They're a manufacturer, they are a dentist, they're a construction, they're a builder, right? And they know you get what you pay for. They know that, right? So you just have to say, listen, are you the most expensive in your market? They'll probably say, no, but we're not the cheapest. Okay, great. Now, are there people that undercut you in your business? Yeah, of course. Every business, there's someone who's cheap, right? Every business. So let me ask you a question. How do the cheaper guys deliver something so cheap? They gotta cut corners, right? They gotta cut corners. There's no way somebody is running an IT business or any business and not making money, they are cutting corners. So the question is not how much does it cost? The question is, what are you getting for the money? Because $100 a seat price, where you don't have compliance, you don't have security, you don't have quality, it's not a bargain. It's not the bargain you think. And so I don't know what that guy's doing, but he can't be doing what I'm quoting here, because this is what I quoted you, what you need. And if I don't know what he's doing, but he's not doing this. And so this is where you have to be able to logically explain, here's why we charge more. I would leave out the part because you like to buy a brand new Mercedes and need a beach house, because that, even though that's the truth probably, it just disturbs prospects, so you just got to keep that yourself. But you have to explain, because here's the other thing. Do you want somebody who's barely hanging on by a thread in profitability managing your IT. So think about it from your perspective. Let's say you go to a doctor, a dentist, you go to a CPA, someone who's handling a critical component of your business. Do you want them so threadbare they're not making any money, they could go out of business? Because they're going to be stressed, right? You know they're going to be stressed. They're going to be stretched thin because they can't hire people because they have no money. Like, that's not a good partner in this. So you have to just explain. Sometimes just explaining that to somebody will get them to realize. And the other thing is, like, look, from their perspective, too, nobody wants to spend more than they have to. Nobody. I get that. Like, there's no reason you shouldn't have to spend more. So again, don't ask what the price is. Ask, what are you getting for the money? And do you need the things that are being proposed? And are you going to get a quality service? All right, so make sure you can do that. Number 5, become more competent and confident as a salesperson. By the way, everybody wants to be more confident before they act, but that's not how you get confidence. So my friend Dan Sullivan has a really good talk on this. And so you might want to write this down. So everybody wants to be confident, right? But everybody starts out, whatever we're doing something new, maybe it's sales for you, maybe you're not as confident in sales. See, the first thing you got to do is there's 4 C's. You got to make a commitment. You got to commit to saying, I'm going to master the sales process. Maybe I'm not going to be the world's best salesperson, but I'm going to be really damn good. You got to make a commitment. The next step is you got to have courage. You have to have courage to get your reps in. You got to have courage to make the calls. You got to have the courage to raise your prices. You got to have courage. And guess what? Courage doesn't feel good. Courage is it's taking action when you're shaking in your knees and your palms are sweaty and you're nervous as hell, but you do it anyway. That's what courage is. So most people don't like that process because you have a high chance of screwing it up and embarrassing yourself and maybe getting hurt, that's anything you're doing. So you have to make a commitment to have the courage to get the reps in so that you can get to the next stage, which is the capabilities. Because the only way you get the capabilities, which then gives you confidence when you have the capabilities. Once something becomes normal and you're good at it and you don't really have to think, it's unconsciously competent at something, think about driving. At one point in your life, driving, the first time you drove, you were white knuckling, scared out of your mind. Now today, people drive around, they're drinking a coffee, they're reading the news, they're putting makeup on, they're doing it all at the same time, right? Because they're unconsciously competent. And they don't need courage to get behind the wheel. They have the capabilities, and sometimes you can get overconfident. Like then you get overconfident, right? But you have to understand to get more competent, and you have to get more confidence, you have to go through the courage part, which doesn't feel good, all right?